Keynes' ideas originating from the 1930s Great Depression were influenced by pre-1929 work from economists like Wesley Clay Mitchell in the Keynesian School. They focused on aggregate economics, in contrast to neoclassical microeconomics. The World War I economic control necessitated an overall economic view. The growth of large-scale industrial production and trade made statistical measurement and control more viable, leading to an increased need for an inductive, aggregate approach. This shift became essential as public demand rose for government intervention in addressing unemployment. Keynesian thinking has its roots in a concern about secular stagnation, characterized by a declining rate of economic growth. In the post-World War I private enterprise economy of the Western world, factors contributing to this stagnation included diminishing population growth, global colonization completion, production outpacing consumption, a lack of new inventions, reduced price competition affecting machinery replacement, and the economic impact of slowly spent depreciation fine. This concern, prominent after 1929, were influenced by the works of Mark John A. Hobson, Veblen, and others, as well as empirical observation and historical studies. The concept of secular stagnation, particularly relevant after 1929, drew from the work of Marx, John A. Hobson, Veblen, and others, as well as empirical observation. Post the Great Depression, many U.S. economists embraced Keynesian policies, advocating the public works, federal deficit budget, and credit easing. Recognition of the multiplier effect of government spending on income and the idea that cutting waste was not a real solution to unemployment were key aspects. These ideas were independently discussed, but it was Keynes who provided the analytical framework, sparking the Keynesian revolution in economics.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh, and greetings to Sir Amizam bin Azmi and other fellow classmates. Hope all of you are doing better these days, inshallah. So my name is Mohamad Zaki Zakwan by Muhammad Ruzi. Metro number is 291487. For my part, I want to go through and discuss about the 5 major tenets of Keynesian economics, School of Thoughts by John Meynard Keynes. So for starters, I will show you about 5 major tenets that are consist of macroeconomic emphasis, demand orientation, economy instability, wages and price rigidity, and lastly the major part, which is fiscal and monetary policies. Okay. Keynes' ideas were bloomed during the Great Depression in 1930s, where the world economic state was at the lowest possible in that time. Well, this is because of the state of the world itself, where at those time frames, the world was in healing state after the World War I. In this case, Keynes and his followers have arranged some key forms in restructure the economy. So we begin with the first major tenets. One of the 5 major tenets is microeconomic emphasis. We start with Keynes and his followers are concerned about the determinants of total aggregate amounts of consumption, savings, income, output, and unemployment. So Keynes and his followers are less interested in contexts like some individual firms that decide on their profit maximizing level of employment than his interest towards relationship between total spending in the economy and the aggregate of such employment decision. So in this first principle, Keynes are emphasizing the macroeconomics itself, the microeconomics approach, and concern more about the employment problems. Alright, the second major tenets that we want to discuss about is the demand orientation in Keynesian School of Economic Thoughts. Alright, so this particular core characteristic is to emphasize on aggregate expenditure before known as effective demands in the national income. the output, and also the employment rate. Aggregate demand is composed of four elements, which is the first one is consumption or the consumption of goods and services, investment by industry in capital goods, and the government spending on public goods and services, and also the number four is net export spending. Industry firms will always produce certain level of output that they set and expect to sell to the buyers or their customers. But sometimes aggregate expenditure is not sufficient at all to buy all the output produced. This will be resulting to unsold goods increase. When that happens, firms tend to lay off or fire their employees to cut the operation expenses. And so, because of that, Keynesian economists stress about this matter. That is because the effective demand can establish the actual output, which is, in some cases, it is less than the level of output that would exist if there were full employment. The third one is economic instability. Back in the days, economy was in the state of unstable because of many reasons, mainly because of surrounding problems. However, according to Keynesian economists, the economy can be ups and downs because of the level of planned investment spending is erratic or inconsistent at that time. Changes in investment can result to national income and output to change by amount that is greater than the initial charges in investment. We can see in the curve of IS and LM that we have learned where we can get the equilibrium level of investment and saving by changes in NI, which is national income, that is caused by the changes in the rate of interest, the R. Investment spending is determined by the rate of interest, and the marginal efficiency of capital, which is MEC, means the rate of discount which would equate the price of fixed capital asset with its present discounted value of expected income, or can be determined by expected rate of return above the cost on new investment. Investment rate also depends on people's preference for liquidity and the quantity of money. This MEC, or the marginal efficiency of capital, is depends on the expectation of future profits and supply price of capital. To expect the profit from new investment is unstable, which causing the business to be fluctuate and causing the business fluctuation. Business fluctuation means that it's usually characterized by general upswing or downturns in the span of macroeconomic variables. So the next one is wages and price rigidity. As we know, Keynes have a contrary opinion on economy among other economists at that time. Argued that capitalist economies were not inherently self-correcting. Wages and prices are sticky at that time in that they were not flexible enough or flexible downward to respond efficiently to market demand. This is because of such institutional factors as union contracts, minimum wages laws, and implicit contracts, which is in context of understanding between the employers and their workers that wages will not be cut during downturns charged to be temporary at that time. So in that period of lack of aggregate demand in products and services, firms tends to lower their sales by reducing the production and discharging or laying off workers, not by having meetings on the workers insisting to wage cuts. Prices are also sticky downwards, in which decline in effective demand initially caused reduction in output and employment rather than declines in the price of level in the price level declines in the price level. Deflation occurs only under conditions of extremely severe depression in economy. So the last one for the five major tenets is fiscal and monetary policies. The last characteristic we will discuss about is fiscal and monetary policies that have been implemented by Keynes. Keynesian economists has allocated that the government should intervene actively in any economic activities through appropriate fiscal and monetary policies, primarily to promote full employment rate and price stability, and also economic growth in general. So in order to combat recession and depression or deflation of the economics, government should either increase its spending or reduce tax and increasing private consumption spending. Government also should increase the money supply to bring down the interest rate in hoping that this will bolster the investment spending. As you can see here, combating recession or depression, spending up, meaning that spending increase, taxes decrease. Private consumption spending will be increased. Money supply will be government will increase the money supply to decrease the interest rate. On the other hand, to counter inflation caused by excessive aggregates expenditures, most of it is vice versa from the combating the recession, which is government should reduce their own spending, increase taxes to reduce the private consumption spending, or reduce the money supply to raise interest rates, which resulting to dampen the excessive investment spending. Okay, we have covered the five major tenets. Now we can talk about whom did the Keynesian School of Economics thoughts have benefit to go or seek to benefit. So let's discuss about this. We have to take note and acknowledge that the great success of Keynesian economics came partly because it addresses the pressing issue of its days, which is depression state of economics and the high unemployment rate at that time. Plus, it offered something for almost everyone and those individuals or groups who lost because of the economy state. Like example, administrators of unemployment compensation programs, as stated in the textbook in chapter 21, page 458, if I'm not mistaken, can be easily ignored. The question is, which group have benefited the Keynesian thoughts? So as you can see here, we have consumers, farmers, reformers and intellectual members, societies, workers and business interests. We go to number one. So the number one mainly benefits to the society as a whole that have gained from almost or complete full employment in the industries. That's generally. So the second one is to the workers. Although Labour sometimes objected to specific Keynesian proposals, they firmly approved on Keynes' largest goals. Rising aggregate demand made for tight labour markets and permitted unions to negotiate improved wages and working conditions with less fear of unemployment. The third one is business interests also have taken interest in these thoughts. They have taken benefit from government contracts and government stimuli to get the economy out of recession or depression state of economy. Once in 1930s, bankers had extensive excess reserve, and because of that, they found that a vast of profitable area for investment in government's bonds, in the government bonds, and government controls give them the banking system liquidity, security, and stability. And then number 4, Keynes have benefited reformers and intellectuals person or groups. They enjoyed vastly an increase of employment in government services, and they could pursue with crusading zeal the mild, safe, and sane reform that have grew up of Keynesian thinking. So this number 4, you can refer to the textbooks, also from the same page as I mentioned before, page 458, if I'm not mistaken. And then number 5 is Keynes also have benefited farmers. Okay, farmers long had favored easy monetary policies and low interest rates. They also highly depend on government spending programs on agricultural sectors, because yes, of course the farmers so will spend will favor most on the agricultural sectors. In fact, their spokesperson had put forth a crude theory of multiplier long before it was incorporated in Keynesian system. In defending government intervention, so that farmers can get high income, they claimed that each dollars received by the farmer generated a $7 increase in national income through respending of the farmers' increased receipts. And then lastly, we take a look also for consumers as general. In 1960s and 70s, throughout those time frame, consumers looked favorably on tax cuts and supported politicians who suggested and voted for them. With such cuts, and accompanied by overall reduction in government expenditures, were rationalized on the Keynesian principle that they were necessary to stimulate the demand and economic growth. In 1980s, the rationale for tax cuts took on a supply side orientation, but it was consistent with the Keynesian principle. Now we have done discuss about the group who benefit from the Keynesian approach. Now let's take a look at how Keynesian School of Economic Thoughts valid, useful, or correct in its time. How can they be relevant at that time? We have two sections for this part. The first one, we discuss about the Keynes geared economic theory to policy making, and then the second one is alternative to decrease nominal wage to achieve full employment. We take a look first on the theory to policy making. World wars, worldwide depression, and growing complication of modern life undermine laissez-faire demands that something be done about business fluctuation increase more insistent. And Keynes have provided both explanation of fluctuation and program to mitigate them. Economist's role is greatly used in order to shaping the government policy. So number 2 is alternative to decrease nominal wages to achieve full employment. The Keynesian oversee that there are alternative means to decrease the nominal wages to achieve full employment was particularly timely. This policy description that emerged from neoclassical thinking have found a little support as a political practical solution to unemployment issue. Also, according to Keynes, deep and general nominal wages reduction can result into bad economic policy. This comes to a question of why. And he said that a single firm can increase sales and employment just by wages cuts because of the demand for its product will remain unaffected. But whole country cannot easily increase sales by cutting nominal wages, because wages are a source of demands for goods as well as a cost of production. If wages fall, people will expect the wages to fall more, which may cause business to postpone investment spending, which resulting to depression, depression rate, depression state, become more worse. Also, if falling wages result to falling prices, this also will result to increase the burden of debts, in which transferring wealth from the entrepreneur to the rentier. Rentier means the person who live on income from property of investment. Resuming from the point before, profit margin becomes smaller. Thus, choking means hard to do new investment. Because wage cuts hurt wage earners who have high marginal propensities to consume and help employers who have low ones, the overall propensity to consume is diminished, and this further worsens and ruining more the situation. Other reason to why Keynes are very objected to wage cuts is because they will touch off the labour troubles. John Meynard Keynes are quite successful in converting people to the idea of that wage policy should be separated from policies to counter depression, and Keynes says that there are better ways in combating unemployment while creating full employment rate. Still on the same point, Keynesian thoughts become immensely useful even to those who did not accept Keynes' policy conclusion. They establish a new set of analytical tools to view the world economy, encourage the further development of national income accounting, and also stimulate a vast and fruitful effort at studies of the real world economics, and then quickly develop econometrics, then create a new liberalism on which reformers could pin their hopes for aiding those who benefited least from capitalism. So the last part from me to discuss with all of you is which tenets of Keynesian School of Economic Thoughts that have become the lasting contribution, meaning that the tenets that have been used until now. So many ideas have been developed by Keynes, John Meynard Keynes, and his followers have become an orthodox thinking and elements in contemporary macroeconomics. In fact, as you can see here, when we combine neoclassical microeconomics and Keynesian macroeconomics, it can inspire to contemporary economics. Keynesian concepts such as the consumption function, marginal propensity to consume, saving function, marginal propensity to save, marginal efficiency of capital, transaction and precautionary, speculative demands for money, saving and investment, fiscal monetary policy, ISLM analysis, and many other terms are now standard key points in economic journal and textbooks. This is not to say that all of its ideas and his followers prove to be correct at all times, because some general criticism of Keynes theories are discussed among other contemporary monetarists and the neoclassicists, which is the thoughts by the Chicago schools. And I think so. That's all from me, covering about the major tenets group that benefited by Keynesian theories, how the Keynesian theories have been useful and valid, and which tenets that long-lasting contribute in world economics until now. I hope you understand my speech, and thank you. And we move on to the next presenter. Thank you.
John Meynard Keynes, born in 1883 in Cambridge, England, and passing away in 1946, had a multifaceted life. Born into a moderately prosperous family with an economist father and civic-minded mother, he studied at the University of Cambridge, where his academic interests shifted to politics and economics under the influence of Marshall and Pigou. Keynes played prominent roles in both political and academic realms. He engaged in finance, serving as chairman of a life insurance company and a director of other firms, and participated in governing the Bank of England. Beyond his financial and governmental roles, Keynes was a prolific scholar, journalist, art supporter, and a teacher at University of Cambridge.
There were 5 Keynes publications. He started his publication in 1919 after resigning as an official due to strong opposition to the peace settlement force of Germany in the Paris negotiation. Next, he published a book titled A Treatise on Probability in 1921. In 1926, Keynes published another short book titled The End of Laissez-faire, stating that the events of today are the fruit of risk, uncertainty, and ignorance. Continuing his publication, Treatise on Money in 1930 and The General Theory of Employment, Interest, and Money in 1936. Furthermore, the Keynesian system. The system of ideas that Keynes developed in the general theory consists of several interrelated elements, of which is the consumption function. Keynes pointed to a fundamental psychology law concerning the relationship between consumption and income. Hence, the aggregate consumption function shows the level of aggregate consumption at each level of aggregate income. Keynes also said that there is positive relationship between consumption and income. Thus, the upward slope indicates that the higher level of income lead to the higher level of consumption spending. The consumption function is C equal to A plus CY, where A represent the autonomous consumption, C is marginal propensity to consume or MPC, and Y is disposable income. To get MPC, divide the change in consumption to the change in income. To sum up, consumption depends on disposable income. When Y increase, C increase. When Y decrease, C also decrease. MPC is positive but less than 1. MPC in Keynes consumption function is short-run MPC. Average propensity to consume, or APC, equal to C over Y. APC for as income rise. Now, we move following by saving function. Saving also positively related to the level of disposable income. Financial investment at low level of income, total spending may exceed income and other financial instruments. Similarly with the consumption, there is positive relationship between saving and income. As income rise, financial saving also rise. The saving function is S equal to negative A plus S1. Keynes also said that business undertake investment on the expectation that the new capital or NPS and Y is disposable income. There is an expected return in when a business buy a piece of MPC plus NPS set in output after deducting the running expenses of obtaining that savings during the life possible asset. When Y increase, the size of expected income Y depends on the productivity of the piece greater than zero, the price at which the firm can sell following by the saving function. The added saving also positively related that result from using the piece of capital at low level of consideration. Total spending may exceed income is the supply price or replacement cost of the consumption. Now, we move to the investment. Keynes defined economic investment as the purchase of capital goods. Financial investment which consists of the purchase of stock, bond and other financial instrument is not investment because it does not directly represent purchase of capital goods. For Keynes, financial instruments simply are alternative repository for people's having. Keynes also said that business undertake investment on the expectation that the new capital will add to profit. This is because there is an expected return when a business buy a piece of capital equipment to set its output after deducting the running expenses of obtaining that output during the life of the asset. Although the size of expected income depends on the productivity of the piece of capital, the price at which the firm can sell the added output, the added waste and material expense that result from using the piece of capital, and other consideration in investment decision is the supply price or replacement cost of the asset. According to Keynes, the supply price of the piece of capital is the price that would be just sufficient to cost the manufacturer of the capital to produce one additional unit. Keynes defined the marginal efficiency of capital as equal to that rate of discount that made the present value of the series of expected return just equal to the supply price of the capital asset. This is expressed mathematically as below. where K is the supply price of capital. Capital letter R is the expected return in the particular year, and small letter r is the marginal efficiency of capital. For example, if the present cost of a capital asset is $5,500 and it is expected to yield an annual return of $1,000 for 6 years, with the asset worth nothing at the end of that time, the marginal efficiency of capital is 2.5%. Instead, $1,000 per year for 6 years discounted to the present value using an interest rate of 2.5% would be worth $5,500. Alternatively, $5,500 invested at 2.5% would yield a return of $1,000 each year for 6 years. The marginal efficiency of capital is the marginal productivity as a percentage of the original cost of the capital goods, computed over the life of the capital investment and discounted for uncertainty as well as for futurity. We'll continue to the point investment decision, where we compare marginal efficiency of capital with interest rate. On the other word, interest rate influence the cost of borrowing the fund wish to invest. When marginal efficiency of capital bigger than or equal with interest rate, investment will continue. But if marginal efficiency of capital lower than interest rate, investment will stop. For example, if the marginal efficiency of capital is 2.5%, an investment will not occur at an interest rate of 3%, but it will take place at an interest rate of 2%. A marginal efficiency of capital can be used to construct an investment demand curve. This curve shows the inverse relationship between the rate of interest and the amount of investment for an economy in which all the relevant investment projects has been arranged in descending order of their marginal efficiency of capital. Equilibrium exists when marginal efficiency of capital equal to cost of borrowing, where at the point interest rate and the amount of investment are intersect. For all investment up to investment 1, marginal efficiency of capital more than cost of borrowing, while for all investment beyond to investment 1, marginal efficiency of capital less than cost of borrowing. Further, Keynes disagreed with the classical and neoclassical economy, who thought that the rate of interest produced an automatic balance between the amount of saving business desire for new investment and the quantity of savings supplied. The rate of interest, he said, cannot be a reward for abstinence or a reward for writing, like NASA Williams Sr. and Marshall said. If a person who is saving in cash, he earns no interest. Like I have mentioned in previous slide, saving depends much more on the level of income. The rate of interest is a reward for sacrificing liquidity because it is to convert assets into goods and services without loss in purchase price. The rate of interest depends on the liquidity preferences and the quantity of money. Money being defined as a currency plus demand deposit. A market interest rate is the price that equilibrates the individual desire to hold wealth in cash with the available quantity of cash in the system. Moreover, Keynes' system also highlights about liquidity preference. Liquidity preference depends on three motives for holding money and the reluctance to part with it, except insofar as the rate of interest acts as an effective inducement. The first is the transaction motive, the need for cash to pay for current purchase for consumption and business need. The second is the precautionary motive, the desire to keep some cash on hand for unforeseen emergency. Finally, there is the speculative motive, the desire to hold cash while waiting for interest rate to rise, or stock and bond price to fall, or the general price level to fall. Liquidity allows people to quickly seize financial and economic investment opportunity as they arise. This motive for holding money is translated into a demand for money curve. The demand for money curve is downward sloping because people will desire to hold more cash at lower interest rate. When the interest rate is low relative to some normal interest rate, people will expect it to rise. When the interest rate rise, bond price fall and those who hold bond experience loss. Although people hold more bond and smaller amount of cash when the interest rate is high. Why? The supply of money curve is vertical, reflecting the specific amount of money provided by the central bank. The money supply depends on the policy of the central bank whether to increase or decrease the money supply through change in open market operation, reserve requirement and discount rate. The quantity of money supply is independent of interest rate. Therefore, the money supply curve is vertical or perfectly inelastic. Subsequently, from the graph, an increase in the quantity of money will lower the interest rate unless the public liquidity preference was increased more than the quantity of money. An important point emerges here: a lower of interest rate does not reduce saving as the classical and neoclassical economy assume. state is stimulate investment spending. If the economy was operating at less than full employment, national income would rise and saving would increase. To summarize it, the level of investment in the economy depends on the interaction of the marginal efficiency of capital, which define the investment demand curve, and the market rate of interest depend on the demand for money and supply of money. Continue with equilibrium income and unemployment. Keynes assumed that there is a high correlation between national income and the level of employment. This is because large investment in labor saving capital can cause real domestic output and national income to rise more rapidly than employment. However, Keynes more concerned with short run compared to long run because in the short run we can agree that the level of income determines the level of employment and we can neglect technological change. These two variables can be used to interchangeable. If we ignore the government and international trade, the immediate determinant of income and employment are consumption and investment spending. These two spending components constitute the aggregate expenditure in the economy. Equilibrium national income occur when where the combined level of consumption and investment spending equal the current level of income. Symbolically, Y equal to C plus I. Additionally, saving is the difference between income and the consumption. S equal to Y minus C. Solving the two equations provide an alternative condition for equilibrium income S equal to I. The aggregate expenditure could show the combined level of consumption and investment spending for kami at each level of income. The vertical distance between the consumption function and the horizontal axis is the level of consumption. Equilibrium income is at Y1 because at this point, the aggregate expenditure curves cross the 45-degree line, indicating that consumption and investment equal the existing level of income Y1. Only at Y1 is the vertical distance saving equal to the level of planned investment. A decline in investment spending reduces aggregate expenditure from AE1 to AE2. In response to declining sale and rising inventory, firms reduce their employment and production. National income therefore declined from Y1 to Y2. We note that the equilibrium income declined by more than drop in investment itself. The reason is multiplier effect of an initial change in investment.
Expansionary fiscal policy involves increasing government spending or reducing tax to stimulate economic activity. This approach aims to boost aggregate demand, create jobs, and encourage economic growth during period of economic downturn or recession. By injecting more money into the economy through government spending or providing households and businesses with more disposable income through tax cuts, expansionary fiscal policy seek to spur consumption and investment, ultimately supporting overall economic recovery. Expansionary monetary policy aims to boost private investment during a depression by lowering interest rate through central bank intervention. However, the effectiveness of this strategy may be limited by a concept of a liquidity trap. In a liquidity trap, the demand for money becomes unresponsive to further increases in the money supply, making it challenging to significantly reduce interest rate and stimulate investment during several economic downturns. Keynes challenged the classical belief that investment always reacts to change in interest rate. Extreme cases of interest-insensitive investment demand are depicted in Exhibit 4A. For instance, when businesses are pessimistic about the future, a decrease in interest rate may not significantly increase investment. In situations where investment is entirely unresponsive to interest rate change, the investment demand curve becomes vertical, indicating the change in interest rates or monetary policy may have little effect on the total planned expenditure, aggregate demands, and real GDP. Keynesian economy proposed that in certain circumstances, the money demand curve can become horizontal at very low interest rate, creating what is known as a liquidity trap. This liquidity trap, represented by the horizontal section of demand curve for money, poses a challenge to the Keynesian transmission mechanism. In this scenario, an increase in the money supply through expansionary monetary policies does not result in a lower interest rate, leading to no change in investment, aggregate demand, or real GDP as depicted in Exhibit 4B.